There is a gigantic project being built in silence, right there, in Turkey. A plan that promises to tear through the map and completely change the game of global trade. But, as always, what they show is not the full story. There is something deeper, something that is being deliberately hidden from the spotlight. Imagine a 45-kilometer scar cutting through the land just 30 kilometers from Istanbul. This is no ordinary project. It is the Istanbul Canal, the largest investment in Turkish history, $15 billion that, according to the government, will solve the chaos in the Bosphorus Strait. But is that really all it is? Are we seeing the whole story, or just the tip of the iceberg of a much greater ambition? Because the Bosphorus today is a hellish bottleneck. 40,000 ships per year passing right through the middle of one of the largest cities in the world with 20 million people living on both banks. Oil tankers loaded with fuel, cargo ships carrying chemicals, warships crossing inches away from residential buildings. The risk of a catastrophic accident is not a theory. It is a matter of when. And every ship that passes generates queues, delays, congestion, a logistical strangulation that costs billions. The Bosphorus is the only outlet to the Black Sea. If you look at the map, Russia, Ukraine, Romania, Bulgaria, Georgia, all of these countries depend on that strait to export their production and receive supplies. That is where the natural gas that heats Europe passes through. That is where Ukrainian wheat passes through. That is where Russia projects its naval power into the Mediterranean. Without the Bosphorus, these economies simply stop. The new canal, they say, will relieve this pressure. Capacity for 160 ships per day. Compared to the 130 the Bosphorus has to swallow daily. More safety, more speed, less risk. It sounds like a dream. It sounds like a solution for everyone. But that is where the story starts to get really interesting, because in the Bosphorus, Turkey cannot charge a toll. That is the Montreux Convention, signed in 1936. A treaty that practically internationalized the strait and guaranteed free passage for Black Sea countries. Turkey looks at those 40,000 ships passing through for free every year and sees money going down the drain. Just imagining what it could collect in tolls, each of those ships representing millions of dollars in lost revenue. Now, on the new canal, on this new canal, there is no treaty. There is no convention. Turkey will have absolute power to dictate the rules, to charge whatever price it wants, to control who passes and who does not. The expectation is that the canal will generate up to $8 billion per year in passage fees. $8 billion. The $15 billion investment would pay for itself in less than 2 years. After that, it is pure profit flowing into Turkish coffers. And this is not just about money. This is about control. Because Turkey is not just building a canal. It is building a geopolitical lever. Imagine the following. A Russian warship needs to leave the Black Sea for the Mediterranean. In the Bosphorus, Turkey has limitations. In times of war, Montreux gives Turkey the right to restrict the passage of warships. But on the new canal, the rules are different. Turkey can simply deny passage. It can charge prohibitive fees. It can transform access to the Black Sea into a geopolitical bargaining chip. Russia has already sensed the danger. Moscow looks at this project with open distrust. Because today, Russia has influence over maritime traffic in the region. It has naval bases. It has the Black Sea Fleet. The Istanbul Canal threatens all of that. If Turkey controls an alternative route, Russia's ability to project power into the Mediterranean diminishes drastically. The balance of power in the region could change irreversibly. But the controversies do not stop there. Inside Turkey, the project is deeply unpopular. Polls show that 80% of the population is against it. 80%. People have lost trust. And for good reason. The canal will cut through forests, agricultural areas, entire residential neighborhoods. The environmental impact is devastating. The aquifer that supplies Istanbul is threatened. The region's biodiversity, years of destruction to make way for concrete, and there is more. A detail that the international press has extensively explored. The lands through which the canal will pass belong to President Erdogan's son-in-law, who is also the Minister of Economy. Conflict of interest? Critics say it is no coincidence. The canal's route enormously increases the value of those lands. What was pasture becomes luxury subdivisions. What was forest becomes port zones. The real estate profit from the project, according to estimates, could reach another $10 billion. Not surprisingly, the project faces financial difficulties. In May 2025, the Turkish government admitted that construction only advances when financing is secured. In September of the same year, analysts were already describing the project as stalled. Erdogan's dream of delivering the finished canal faces a reality of high interest rates, inflation, and growing opposition. But those who follow this closely know this project does not die. It may be delayed, it may face obstacles, but Turkey's ambition to become a maritime power will not disappear. The Istanbul Canal is more than an engineering project. It is the key to an economic and strategic dominance that few are willing to admit. Because deep down, this is not a story about canals and ships. It is about power, about a country that has decided it no longer wants to be a supporting actor on the global stage. Turkey wants a seat at the table of the great powers. And it is willing to cut its own territory in half to achieve that. The question that remains is, who will pay the price of this ambition? The Turkish people who will have their land torn apart and their environment sacrificed. The Black Sea countries who may lose free access to the Mediterranean. Or Russia, which sees its regional influence going down the drain. What do you think is really behind a project of this magnitude? Will Turkey manage to get the canal off the drawing board, or will it become just another dream swallowed by bureaucracy and lack of funding? Leave your opinion in the comments. If this video made you see something you had not noticed before, share it with someone who needs to understand what is really happening in the game of global power. And do not forget to subscribe to the channel, because tomorrow there is more. And what is coming is even bigger.